Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. We're coming to the end of the year. 2019 has been a pretty crazy year for me, but also the community and Kabam, because they've done some good things and they've done a lot of bad things as well. And a lot of the times I've been pointing them out in Marvel Contest of Champions news, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a year in review. Some really important stories we'll go over in 2019 from Hitman RR. And RIP to him, Dreadnaught as well, RIP to him as well. Not forgetting loads of different things, scuffing up with the champion requirements, the gifting badge, and Cull Obsidian being nerfed just after being introduced. The list goes on. As of today, Marvel Contest Champions News has had 600 videos, well 601 at the moment. It may be 602 by the end of the year, depending on what Kabam do in the next 24 hours, which, let's face it, they could do whatever and mess things up, and it's got to be talked about. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind. But 601, yeah, it's a lot of videos, and I can imagine that next year will probably be a case, it'd be a similar amount. Not to mention the fact that we'll probably have MCOC based news videos increasing, even at the moment they're about once a month. But yeah, over the last year, I want to just like showcase some of the amazing stories that we've had, some stuff where Marvel Contest of Champions has been running well, not so well. Let's just dive into a month by month recap of the year. Kicking off in January, we had some fake Realm of Legends 2 images, and it made us really kind of think like, well, what's going on here? Also, Act 6 was something that was kind of teased, but the fact is the Realm of Legends 2 was something that really kind of looked like, is this real or is this indeed fake? Now, this was actually confirmed as being fake news by Kabam and Mike, but actually this transpires into something else later on in the year with Realm of Legends 2 and 3, but actually turned out to be something else, which we'll talk about a bit later on in the video. February continued on with something that I kind of have a big issue with, and it's something that was kind of revolving around the CCP, in that when we'd review champions and we'd hype them, but when it came to a point of them being implemented, introduced, and players obviously getting their hands on and spending money towards, they turned out actually not functioning as correct, or Kabam would change them, which is something that you can see here. Where Mr. Sinister, who was able to switch back an extensive amount of suicide masteries back at an enemy, was really annoying players, because the fact is, well, Kabam changed it, and that's the sucky side of things. But the thing is, Kabam had to learn, and they only have really taken the last month to do this, in that when they implement characters, even for the point of review or for the point of pre-game launch, that they make sure the champions are done right. And stuff like that, where you're able to put a huge amount of damage back to the enemy in a very instant point and time, needs to be addressed, and it sort of has been. Just a few days later, the one thing that was quite exciting is seeing that there was a Dave and Buster's game for Marvel Contest of Champions being put out. I got to play this back in October for the very first time, and it was a lot of fun. I must admit, I like the idea that you're able to collect these kind of like playable characters or playable cards that you're able to kind of then try and get something good. First time I got a Wolverine, which I'm pretty chuffed about. So that's really cool. This game is actually a lot of fun. If you do get a chance to go to Dave & Buster's, check it out. Unfortunately, a month later, it was a case that this machine got broke. Actually, I think it was a couple of days, or just a week after, the game actually stopped functioning correctly, which was a bit embarrassing, but there you go. One little bit of good news that came out of March that was very unexpected was Gamora was getting a buff. I think we all were just so happy about that. But also March was met with the double Alliance Quest rewards issue, where players were getting double the amount than normal. There's something that actually Kabam didn't properly address, amongst other things that they didn't address this year. And, you know, trying to find out a way to then remove the rewards from those that got double the amount, and even in some cases triple the amount, was something that they just weren't able to do. And like I said, was an ongoing problem that still players were quite keen to find out, look, these are nice rewards, why aren't we getting them? Could they just double the rewards that we're giving people in general? Either way, everyone wasn't entirely happy with it. March was a really troubling time as well, because the gifting badge was removed. I think I found out of this on like a Saturday night or a Sunday morning, and I thought, look, I'm not going to make something in the same scheme as I normally make Marvel Contest of Champions news, but I thought I'd do like a quick little video, kind of drinking the tea type thing, just to kind of say like, look, what the heck is happening about this? And this was where fraudulent activity had started, but obviously this could have been going on for years since people got the gifting badge for the very first time. And obviously it's something that Kabam do need to look into when it comes to 2020, how they sort out this gifting badge related problem, whether or not the gifting event has brought out the worst in people, and also at the same time, is there something better they can do with the ranking side of things, because the rank rewards for the gifting event have been a little bit of a troubled time. And also, just a couple of days before, the champion requirements for 6.2 caused a bit of a stir amongst the community. Still something I think Kabam have worked on and did say, look, we shouldn't have done this back when they were first introduced. This now brings us on to April, and something that was introduced that I absolutely love was the negative zone, something that I talked about quite favourably for a while, and especially with this month also including some broken aspects. This was a very dodgy month, especially considering that the game went down and also was just practically unplayable, with stuff with dungeons as well being an extensive issue. You know, it's just not good to have this around this game. Also, with the loss of the gifting badge, there was compensation that was put out, but it wasn't a case that this seemed to be very favourable to those that went for this for the purpose of buying. So if you bought a briefcase, a Tony Stark's briefcase from the store, it's an 850 unit package that you get back. And we were only receiving 300 units back, as Kabam had valued it thusly. However, though, the fact is, through a little bit of criticism, constructive criticism, Kabam came back and gave us an additional 550 units, which was the right thing to do in the situation. Also, at the same time in April, Kabam did some good things. Variant 2, or Back Issues 2, was actually a better step up from Back Issues 1, which is just... again, I'm just getting through it in a slow pace, but I'm just finding it a little bit boring. But the fact is, Kabam are hitting it out with some newer content. As we said, Variant 4 is good, Variant 3 is good as well. But also, we've had problems with the fact of very defensive, incredibly defensive, as you can see on the screen at the moment, defensive AI. And this was atrocious. This was stuff in Arena that you go close and do a heavy attack, and you just get completely mauled. But the enemy champion was just staying there, standing still, doing completely nothing. Mid-April also saw issues with an abuse story at Kabam. This being mainly out of the Austin side of things, Austin, Texas, but still was something that had to be taken very seriously. And funnily enough, from this, there was nothing really that came about from it. It was up to this person to tell their story. And at the end of the day, I don't even know if anything was sorted out with it. But I guess this is kind of a Kabam Austin thing, or Kabam Texas type division that have got to deal with the situation, opposed to it being like a bigger company based story. But I don't know if the person was like sent to hush, because again, nothing really came about from this story as it was posted. There was even no follow-up to say like whether or not this person was okay, but you know, hopefully they're doing fine after this situation. Also, Nameless Thanos. That was something in April. So Nameless Thanos was a bit of a scuff because there was problems with the uncollected difficulty, especially with the way that the champion was coming off. And compensation, I think, was given out for this particular champion. I can't actually remember. And I can't see if there's anything in my videos to say that we did get something. But I want to say that we did. If we didn't, then that's something that Kabam should have done. Moving into May, and we had some serious exploits with the bounty missions. So when people were like joining alliances, they were like triggering off stuff like bounty missions, and they could just switch between different alliances, triggering off bounty missions left, right and center. Therefore, having extensive amounts of resources, shards being entered into their accounts. So this was something of a big problem that even Kabam had to get involved with. Okay, something that was great about May, and that was the it seemed to be like the face thing on like Snapchat filters, where you could like change your face to be something like more female. And it was like, yeah, I think Powderman Pete just like blew us completely away, just with like, if he was a female, he would be very attractive as a female. This was, I mean, I look, oh god, just don't look at me. The fact is, you know, it was just a thing that was May. This was May. Also, late May brought about what I believe to be Variant 3 tease. Because if you look at the way that it's put together with 3 chapters, also you've got the thing that says 1 star. Was this something of trigger off something of an idea for Variant 3? Or could this have been Variant 4? Because it was more in time with 1 stars being on the last chapter. Either way, it gives this kind of idea that maybe there's different types of chapters of Realm of Legends, which, let's face it, it turned out not to be. So I think instead this was something of a tease for something that was actually being worked on for like a variant, either Variant 3 or Variant 4 at the time, because Variant 2 had already been released. In early June, we saw problems with Can't Stop, Won't Stop, and this was driving a lot of players completely batty with the fact that it couldn't actually be worked out. Kabam put something in place with Can't Stop Won't Stop with having Hyperion on, and it just didn't work. I think it was fine with other champions, but mainly that particular champion with Hyperion, with the extensive power gain and other things, just made it a completely terrible piece of content to work around. And Kabam did end up getting this sorted, thank God, because it was really annoying. Now in June, Kabam continued on their changes, and policy changes was a big thing, especially for those that buy stuff and the way that they may kind of like ask for a refund. Most of the time, Kabam and agencies and whatever would just actually send you back the money straight there and then. However, though, that changed somewhat with this policy change. So it's a case that if you ask for a refund, it's not going to be great in the future. And this is the point in time everything changed with Cull Obsidian, and the fact is he was damage outputting a lot more than normal, or the way that he functioned was not in Kabam's whole kind of construction. So this was something that Kabam wanted to change, and it's something that is going to be fundamentally and completely overhauled when it comes to next year as part of these kind of champion balances. Either way, you know, it's a bit annoying. In that month, we also saw things with like what this credit thing was with if you buy, but then you ask for a refund type things, I just mentioned a moment ago. But yeah, crazy old time for Kabam, because this was the same month that they decided to put in the Summoner's Sigil, which is something I've still had a very kind of like love-hate relationship with. Some months I've liked it, others not so much. Kabam have teased aspects of being put in, like when they did the early access crystal for Dr. Doom, but didn't do it for any other champion since then. Also, my kind of like thinking is that it would have been better to add something in of like improvement for your grind. So if you're doing stuff like Arena, then you increase the amount of battle chips and as well gold you get back from doing that said grind. The same way that it would be largely with that appreciation bonus that we get once a year, maybe twice a year. Either way, that's something I wish Kabam would look into in the future. But the fact is, at least they're doing something to improve things month in, month out. We'll see what happens with the Summoner's Sigil in 2020. It's now August and we've got some, well, kind of like odd things with objectives, and it was a case of like all the kind of class strip stuff and the kind of spider objectives. It just wasn't really kind of doing it for people, especially like what you could win from it, which is, okay, you get a rarity at 2-star, but there's other things going on. In a month where we had some kind of issues with the placement of special bars, like below where you're meant to like click, so you kind of all the time you were like playing, you were knocking into it. We also had a problem with Sinister Labs where it kind of went down and we had to have it extended for us, so it did an extra couple of days because we couldn't access it over the weekend, which was kind of weird. Also, for whatever reason, there seemed to be more of an increase of ban of bot accounts, and especially for Arena, something that Kabam should do month in, month out, or a lot more frequently in order to kind of free up the extent of, well, you know, the scores, because usually they're a bit ridiculous. And there's been a lot of botting, especially over the 2014 to 2015-16 arenas this year. It's not been particularly nice. Also, something that kind of messed up a lot of the mercs, and that was something to do with She-Hulk. Now, She-Hulk was an amazing character and still is an amazing character, but she was able to combo into a heavy attack, meaning that she was one of the most effective champions out there, especially for what Kabam would see as being an exploit. For us, we kind of go like, okay, that's good strategy around the mechanic. Although, you know, people will differ on that one. But yeah, this was the month where She-Hulk was effectively altered. Okay, now we're into September, and it was the double Alliance Wars season rewards. People were getting double the amount, and it was obviously annoying a lot of people. And I think that Kabam ended up taking these away, but I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember back then, like months ago, what went on. Man, it was kind of a crazy old time. Also, in the same month, there was issues when it came to Armor Shattered. And this has been something that had been plaguing us for a little while, but it seemed to get a little bit worse. Also, further classifications on things like how it worked and what it suppressed when it comes to ability accuracy and power gain is something that only really kind of sorted itself out about a month after, especially with us kind of going like, oh god damn, what's happening? Also, we got further announcements to say that the certain champions would look to be reworked in the future, which Ebony Maw got confirmed of that, as well as we knew Human Torch and Annihilus. We didn't know about Namor, and we knew something about Cull Obsidian, but we didn't know how extensive, and we still don't know how extensive that will be going into next month or the month after. Also, finishing off September, the problem was with people exploiting Boss Rush, and they had to move it. There was a case of people could re-access and get 10,000 5-star shards over and over again, which was kind of a bit of an issue. Also, we had the compensation out for She-Hulk. So for those that didn't like the way that she'd been changed, you could rank her down. So that was something and gain back the resources. Oh, and the gold at a later date. It's now October and I'm reporting from New York Comic Con. Yeah, this was pretty impressive and pretty amazing for me to actually kind of do some kind of correspondent type stuff. I didn't have the best tech with me, but obviously I didn't want to take my more expensive stuff from the studio. But I love the fact that I was able to record stuff, gather the information for the day with footage, and then upload it and put it as some content for you guys to see. And also be on for the ride. Like, there was no kind of like active stuff except for Captain B doing this kind of like live correspondent things or like whilst we're there correspondent stuff. So I absolutely love gathering this stuff and I really hope I'm able to get there next year to do exactly the same. When I got back to the UK, one thing that was really interesting to find out the kind of the stalling and the slow process of getting Colossus and Old Man Logan getting that rework. Also, you know, not to mention the fact that we had the heal prevention thing, which started off, that was the whole kind of map 6, kind of Nameless Thanos, taking Nick Fury against that particular champion interaction that just went completely wrong. And I don't think we're getting an update on that until next month. So it's been a long time building to that. October, we learned of the extent of changes to the calendars, and in particular trying to pick up those special login type crystals where you can get 4s or 5 stars as opposed to it being like more of a 3 to 4 star. So that was a good change. One of the main things out of November, I think the only thing I can remember out of November, was the fact of compensation and the game being down. Those are the only 2 things I actually remember from this, apart from being green screened onto some hills, which that was a video. And this problem seemed to go on for a while with the kind of unclaiming of event stuff still being a thing. Also, not to mention some weird type compensation that came in for stuff. And also just other problems associated with stuff like Alliance Wars, which kind of caused like enlistment problems as well. Which ultimately led to Alliance Wars Season 13 having to be ended so very shortly. And obviously causing a lot more problems than ever. But at the same time, other people benefited as well. So there's big swings and roundabouts to this. Whilst in November, we also had a bit of an issue with the fact that, man, the Fantastic Invasions didn't deliver, and that opened up a big can of worms in the community. Not to mention the fact that some of these kind of like objectives for the community, or like community-led things, they were good, but they didn't, you know, 100% deliver for some players. So look, there's also so many things for compensation, and that was a big old month for compensation, like you would not believe. So November was a difficult one. There was also announcements of things like the gifting event, which did put a big question mark on whether or not it would be executed. Still in mind that there could be fraudulent activity still going ahead, but went ahead, it did. Also, not to mention, that was a rank 3 6-star that was about, and that's crazy. There's actually been a Corvus that's been out fairly recently as well that I've seen, so thanks to people who send me that screenshot. But man, yeah, crazy for the first ever rank 3 6-star, and it's been a Sunspot, which is a fantastic champion. Also, Kabam did major dollar when it came to Black Friday or the Cyber Weekend, but essentially this article pinpointed to the Black Friday event. So Kabam did very well financially, and this was just into the start of December, so all this stuff is largely being kind of put together with the information. We're just about to hear what's going to be happening for the 5-year anniversary, and as well the tease of the gifting event. The anniversary gift came round and it was actually pretty good. It was well received by the community. 7-day anniversary calendar, kind of not what we were really expecting, but still was alright and passable. But there were a few other things like the anniversary boost, which I utilised very well. We're doing a lot more of the arena grinding. So there were some positives that were coming out of the month of December, which was still, you know, very much in until tomorrow, that is, or the day after, whenever I decide to put this video out. Also, we saw some pretty incredible news that from the gifting event, someone has managed to pick themselves up a 6-star Spider-Gwen. Now, there were a few like changes midway through that if you created an account during the event of the gifting event, you couldn't allow it to join an alliance. And this was because there was uncompetitive means of unfairness actually taking place as a result. I mean, even this person has just started the game with the Summoner Sigil, kind of means that that would be the free version. But joining an alliance and then trading up stuff does mean that people increase what they take home from that event. So there was some stuff that needed to be sorted out, which is actually mentioned in this video. Link is in the description down below. But also the gifting event, as we've kind of discussed in a very recent Marvel Contest of Champions news, is that there's some other means going ahead, like people trying to boot people from alliances because they're not exactly, you know, being fair with leaking information, but at the same time, the tactics that are surrounded behind it that are rhyme to reason. And I've been told that there's going to be some speaking about this from the likes of Crystal Opening Whale and a few other members of the Asgard Alliance, just to confirm this level of detail, which they want to let people know, but look, they want to keep tight-lipped at the moment. One thing that dropped midway through December was the fact that we had this trailer, this very weird trailer, which was a combining of universes trailer. Kind of messed up and skewed up the idea of the 5-year anniversary for MCOC, and it did leave players very confused and still thinking that whether or not Marvel Realm of Champions is more prominent and is the focus of Kabam. But they have to reiterate, and did reiterate, the fact that it's 2 separate games, 2 separate studios, and actually everything is considered to be fine at the moment, with a future plan for Marvel Contest of Champions for many years still being in the works. And also, before the Greater Gifting Crystal was introduced, people were still talking about... Also, before the Great Gifting Crystal was introduced, we could still see the stats of what was in them, and it didn't please a lot of people. But do bear in mind, people have different thoughts for different ways and places they are in the game. If you're a whale and you spend a lot of money in the game, you maybe want to see things like 6-star signature stones, maybe like the amounts and values of how much you receive from X amount of 6-star shards. But the fact is, these crystals still did deliver, with people picking up, in cases like one crystal was giving out 10,000 6-star shards, a huge amount of ISO, huge amount of tier 5 basic, and also like a load of 5-star shards, tier 2 alphas, etc, etc. There are some decent stuff that have been seen from these crystals, and do feel that they're good, but I'm sure next year seeing 6-star signature stones is going to have to be a bit of a thing. And now, with at least 24 hours to go until the end of the year, the biggest story that has ended the year has got to be this kind of Namor communication, where in China they were communicated in the release notes that something was going to happen to Namor himself, but wasn't put in the release notes in the version that we've seen, and also the version that I've covered for Marvel Contest of Champions news. So the fact is, like, where were we up to with this and where we are in the next year is something that has to be clarified ASAP. Like, as soon as January hits, that's the point that something's going to be mentioned. And that is a wrap on... And then we have that has been a wrap of all the key or biggest Marvel Contest of Champions news stories of the year. Obviously, for those that want to see a story featured that maybe I've not covered, my apologies. I can't get to every single story, and sometimes there's so many stories that kind of escape me. Like the introduction of Arcus, and I know someone was really annoyed with the way that the champion kind of worked and how it didn't really, it caused like a freezing effect when you're playing. Also, there's several other stories as well I've probably missed from like my recap of the year, but yeah, there's a lot to recap on, especially in 1 year Marvel Contest of Champions. Like even considering stuff like the Glory Store and the way that that's changed dramatically from the start of the year to where we were just a month ago. So that was good. Also, Kabam kind of listening at times to reward-based changes, and that's something I hope they work on next year. I'm a bit kind of interested to see where they go with champion changes and so many other stories. Obviously, thanks very much for checking out this video. Thanks very much for continuing your massive support of Marvel Contest of Champions news and me as a creator. To the members and Patreons, I will be doing a big thank you video that will be coming out next week when I've got a bit more time and things with December just calm down. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to 2020. Thanks very much again for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye for now.